Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Lazarus. So today's Daily Run, we're going to the Cathedral, or that means we're going to the Void, which is a pretty much standard goal nowadays, especially after we've learned the optimal routes of where to go if you want to maximize our chances. And the very first floor here, kind of going past the Void, of course we have to realize that we're gonna go to the Void, which means we have to be the Hush, which means that we kind of have to be on the lookout to see or get some things that we maybe normally wouldn't get. So Hush is much more important in this case than to necessarily get to boss rush, so I feel like for that exact reason it's important that we explore the early floors so we can actually try to get some advantage. And this is exactly what I think happened here. We got the pyro from our secret room, which is I don't think we would have gotten if it didn't take just a few more minutes to kind of go to the floor and explore it, because you see we're at the 4th minute now, which I would say is under par, but obviously for the items that we got and for the consumables that we got, it was very worth sacrificing our time in order to try to, I would say, maximize the chances later down the road. So maybe one interesting decision that happened on the first floor is that there were two doors, and of course we needed a key to open either one of those. And if you only had one key, we did get 3 keys, so we were able to go to both, but imagine if you only had one key, we would have to make a choice. So do we go to the library or do we go to the shop? And the problem is you never really can know that if the door you're gonna enter is gonna be the one you want to enter in the first place. So if you went to the shop and maybe there wasn't another key in there, we would have missed on, I would say, a pretty good transformation, so the book for transformation, but also we would have missed out on getting the Satanic Bible in the first place. And you can imagine that this particular item can be very beneficial and just overall very strong, because it gives you a renewable source of health, which means that you can then use that health to trade it away to maybe get more money, or you can just use it to try to get some more devil deals. And especially as Lazarus, I feel like getting an item like this is pretty much a godsend, because then you can sacrifice yourself, you revive with only 1 health, and then of course you can bring yourself back up to speed, which is basically using your active item a couple of times. And when you look at it in a vacuum, depending on which door you would have taken, just based on luck, of course, it would have essentially decided the run, because if you kind of go past that, there really weren't a lot of other good things that maybe we could have looked forward to. And let's for imagine, say that you did go to the shop on this particular run and there was only 1 key, and you had 5 cents and you decided to buy a bomb. And of course then you decide to bomb the keeper, because it's a very likely he's going to give you back 5 cents back, and you also find the secret room. And when you find the secret room, there's Spyro in there. So I feel like this would have been a very divisive strategy to some extent, not a strategy, but a very divisive decision in some extent. Because in one sense, you would be getting 99 bombs, which would allow you to get more exploration bonus, but in another sense, you would be getting the book for transformation and also the ability to have more health overall. So I'm not really sure what in this particular case would have led to a better outcome, but luckily we didn't have to kind of bore ourselves with the details, because we did get 3 keys, we were able to go to both, and because I took a little bit of extra time, I was actually managed to get both of those. I got basically everything I needed to get, and I had all of the advantages. So I felt pretty good going the 2nd and the 3rd floor. Just because that besides those items, we also got, I would say, some pretty good DPS upgrades overall. So we did pick up a Black Rune, which allowed us to suck up 2 of the 3 books that were in the library. We also got the Halo, which is an all-around stats upgrade, and we also got a Cat and Ninetail. So both of those items, and of course the Black Rune in that case, are very beneficial, because they're giving us some free stats we desperately need. And when we respawned as Lazarus too, that was also very decent, because now we also have, I would say, an additional damage boost. And even though we didn't have a lot of damage overall, I would say, just in the sense that maybe our run wasn't as strong, just all of those little upgrades actually do add up over time. And especially when you pick up something like that onion, not that onion, but the other onion, the sad onion. No, it's the dead onion, and the other one is the sad onion, this one is the dead onion. Yeah, because then you get spectral tears and you also get penetrative shots, so your damage goes way up. And of course, just getting something like the Crown of Light also doubles your damage. So from this point forward, we're actually in a really good position from my perspective. It's also very effective, because every time we get hit, of course we do lose that stat upgrade, but because we have our Satanic Bible, we can always go back up to full. And I think that Crown of Light in particular, if you want it to work, you need to have full red health containers. And because we are kind of shielded with, we only have 1 of course, but we're shielded with 11 black hearts, which means that it's kind of impossible for enemies to get us that low. So I was feeling really good in our position. We were doing a lot of damage, we had spectral tears, we had penetrative shots, so all around our run was actually looking really good. And not only that, our range was great, our tear delay was great, I mentioned damage before, but maybe what's most important here is that our chances of getting an angel deal were still relatively unpreserved. I mean, preserved, not unpreserved, because we still had 50% chance to get them. And of course, every time we go there and try to beat an angel, we also get some extra points for doing that in the first place. So I did avoid devil deals in this particular run, and the main reason for that was that basically they sucked. And I figured going to the angel deals might maybe provide to be a little bit more fruitful. And I'm not sure if it was maybe worth it. Maybe I would have gotten something better if I went the devil deal route, and if I just picked up maybe one of the first items that I found and maybe sacrificed there, maybe that would have led to an overall stronger or a better run. But I decided maybe this is gonna be the way to go today, and I do feel like it was the right decision, if not for any other reason than the fact that we got a few more exploration bonus as we actually went through the run. And of course, getting the sensor in a position like this where we kind of try to preserve our hits and not get damaged so we can actually keep the Crown of Light is also very helpful. I don't imagine this would actually help against someone like Hush, especially with his continuous shots that travel through the screen and come back on the other one. It's kind of annoying if you have an item like Sensor, because then you slow the shots down, they lose some of their velocity, and then they don't actually fly over your head, which means they're actually more likely to get hit, even though it might seem maybe a bit counterintuitive, just because those shots, I would say, are kind of moving in a weird pattern. You're reducing their shot speed, and then you'll have some which are fast, and then you'll have some which are slow, so it becomes overall an exercise in frustration to some extent, just because you can't really avoid all of the damage that Hush is throwing out at you. But in most, or I would say any other room, I think having something like the Sensor is a good item, just because you slow enemies that are near you, and it just allows you, I would say, for a bit of a finer dodging mechanic, because now suddenly you can walk into an enemy and still expect them not to hit you. You know that you'll be relatively safe when you actually try to get through it, and of course being relatively safe in this case means not taking damage, which means we get to preserve our double damage from having the Crown of Light in the first place. So we did go down to the Hush, of course. We have Diplopia, and I found Magic Mush. So at this point, it's pretty much, I would say, a one run. I mean, it was a one run before, but when you pick up a Magic Mush, and of course you are able to duplicate it and not only get Magic Mush, but also get something like Mom's Contact, you know that your run is looking pretty decent from that point forward. So of course I went into the Hush fight. I tried to beat him the best I possibly could, and if you kind of take, I would say, paid attention here to some extent, you're gonna be able to see that Sensor is actually not that beneficial as you maybe thought it would be. Of course, there's also this problem that we're just huge and our hitbox is relatively the same, but the problem is that our sprite looks bigger, which makes it a little bit harder to dodge, which I'm sure you're aware of, especially with some of these combinations of attacks like flying tornadoes, and at the same time he's doing some of his red shots, which also, I would say, travel in weird patterns. It just becomes, I would say, again, very difficult to navigate all of those without taking any hits. But still, we did manage to get through it. We went through the most of the void, and we have finished actually in a pretty decent spot with 45,000 points, not 40,000 points, with 45,000 points. And I think we finished in the 5th place overall. So again, another very, very decent run, which I don't really feel like I deserved this one. I did feel like I took a little bit too much damage overall. This could have been easily reduced if our damage penalty was a little bit lower. Our time penalty is also on the high side. You can see that a lot of players were actually, or managed to finish much faster. I guess we still didn't make it to Boss Rush and of course to Hush, and we were able to kind of capitalize on Shrek because we had 99 cents and we had 99 bombs and 32 keys, which is not too shabby. Our expression bonus because of the angels was also, I would say, unnaturally high, and also because of course the void is such a large floor. So I think that in all of those aspects the run was a decent one, and definitely felt like, I would say, more balanced in favor of going a little bit more slowly and a bit more methodical if you want to have a good success. But I still think that it turned out pretty well, even though maybe I made some mistakes throughout the run. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.